Wendy, Richard, thank you very much for carrying this conversation with us because you're doing such a good thing about with your comics and cartoon endowment at Columbia University, and the announcement is going to come out pretty soon. Tell us about what is the big news that the world should hear.
Oh, well,
In
uh,
25 words or less.
I can't do 25 words or less. Um, we've been doing, as you may know, ElfQuest for almost 50 years. And in that time, Wendy has accumulated a lot of artwork. And I kept all of that artwork for many, many reasons, part of them personal, part of them business. And I began to realize that if something happened to our house and it burned down, that artwork would be destroyed, even though it was insured. In 2012, Karen Green, who is at Columbia University, came up to us at San Diego Con and said, would you consider donating your archival materials to a comics and graphic novel archive that we are building? She had already acquired Chris Claremont's
Hmm.
papers. I mean, he had an amazing run on the X-Men. So she got all his papers, and we were number two in line. And we said actually, great, please take this, put it into a very, very safe place. Fast forward to a year or two ago, and I had the idea, and I'm not sure exactly where it came from, probably a number of different sources. But I said to Wendy, I want to do something that helps perpetuate the existence of your artwork, the existence of this archive, and the existence of ElfQuest's legacy beyond when we're going to be here. And we had some conversations with Karen Green, and she let us know that there were different ways that we could contribute to Colombia, help preserve, to help keep going the work that she and many other people have been
Right.
doing for the last several years.
Over the past couple of years, especially, we became very conscious of preserving the work for future generations. We want to be sure that people are reading the story well past when we're gone, and that they can actually go and visit the artwork and see the originals at Columbia University Library. Is students studying the work and that sort of thing. It's wonderful. It's like we'll be there still
Mhm.
interacting and teaching.
Yeah. Over years, over many years, people have come up to us and said, are you ever going to sell your original artwork? And from the very beginning, I had a resistance to that. Some of it was business related. I wanted to keep the artwork in case we needed to reprint the comics. This
Hmm.
is long ago pre-digital, long ago pre-scanning. Um, Plus, I had an emotional attachment to the art because I was watching her do it day and night, and I just had a feeling for all the art that she did.
He's always been ElfQuest's number one fan.
Um, so we had all of this stuff. And now that it's at Columbia, as Wendy has said, it's there for people to study. They can pull out an entire issue and look at the progression and see exactly how she laid down the pencils and laid down the ink work. You can see the mistakes that were whited out. It is very real and very organic and very immediate. We decided to make this donation, this endowment, to preserve the ElfQuest artwork, to help preserve the legacy of ElfQuest, and to help because the money isn't just going to ElfQuest. The
Hmm.
money is
That's right.
invested, the interest, I guess, from that is used to for the entire archive. If Columbia needs a new scanner, or if the archive needs a new scanner, that money can be used for that. If they need to hire an assistant or a preservationist or whoever, the money is that. So it's not just us, it's whoever has something in this archive for all time.
Wow. And the donation is a $500,000, which I mean, I'm actually very impressed in the fact that you donated your personal collection to Columbia University, but then now also proceeds that help out inspires and more generations will actually see all of this.
Mhm. Yeah,
And that's why we've already been down to Columbia a couple of times when someone teaching a class on graphic novels has brought out Wendy's art, and Karen is there to handle it delicately. And you have 15 or 20 students around a table, and we're there, and Wendy's talking about how she did this or
yeah.
did that.
We love that.
It is very, very exciting, very, very gratifying.
Mhm.
Um, we just want the fact of comics and graphic novels, because they have changed so much over the decades, we want this art form, this cultural art form, to continue to be represented so that people can study it. ElfQuest has been good to us. Um, we have been luckier than many.
Mhm.
We have not had to sell original artwork to supplement other income. And I don't mean that in any negative sense. People's art is theirs to do with what they will, and more power to them. I always had a resistance to it. I just didn't want to let it go.
Mhm.
And ElfQuest was successful enough over the years that we didn't have to consider selling it.
Mhm.
Plus, the thought that a 28-page story is such a whole thing, such an integral thing, that if the splash page went here and this double page spread went there, it's broken. It will never be together to be appreciated as it was originally.
Mhm.
Now all of that material is at Columbia, and you can look at the whole 28 pages. You can see the double page spread. You can see how it was taped together. You can see all of this stuff, which I think is very, very important.
Well, I think because ElfQuest holds a kind of unique position in the comics industry, in that it was started independently, it was published independently. Um, Even though different publishers like DC and Dark Horse, we worked with them and partnered with them, we always retained ownership of the property. There are so many horror stories of creators losing their properties, like Dave Stevens losing Rocketeer, or you know, um, but thanks largely to Richard's overseeing it and maintenance, ElfQuest has remained ours through all these years, through all different options from movie studios, different kinds of partnerships of all stripes. And so it holds a unique place in being the longest running independent fantasy comic in America. And I think it does deserve its place at Columbia largely because of that.
Mhm. Now, in your words, why do you think ElfQuest resonates with fans for so enduring for 50 years?
I'll start, you finish.
Take it away.
Okay. I think when you write and draw what you love, it comes through and people respond to that passion. And ElfQuest was a passion project from the very beginning. I sat Richard down and told him the story in 1977. He got excited about it. He taught himself how to publish, and we began turning out the story. And we caught lightning in a bottle. It took off right away. People responded to it because they had never seen anything like it. The story was very emotional, very involving. It wasn't about great big guys in tights hitting each other and, who's stronger, Thor or Superman. Uh, it was about a tribe of people who are different. They're not quite human, but they're human enough that you can relate to them, and they are searching for their place in the world where they can be safe and where they know that they have a home where they belong. And this is a universal longing. It was true back in the mid 70s. It's even more true now that people are looking for their identity. They're looking for where they belong, where they can be safe, where they can be happy, and who they really are. And so the story is timeless in that way. And that's my opinion about why ElfQuest has lasted this long.
When we go to conventions or other appearances, very often someone will come up to us and say, "Thank you for ElfQuest. I never saw anyone in comics that represented me."
Mm.
And
Mm.
this doesn't matter whether it's the color of skin or the sexual orientation
Mm.
or the dreams of doing something. People had come up to us and said, "ElfQuest sees me.
Mm.
ElfQuest recognizes me." And as Wendy just said, these days, we're old enough to remember the first revolution back in the 60s and 70s when, civil rights and
Feminism.
feminism. And we thought, wow, stuff's getting done, the Voting Rights Act and all of that. And we thought it's all, going to be great from here.
Oh,
We
we
would
thought
never.
by 2025 we'd be living in science fiction world with flying cars and all of that stuff would be done with.
And who would have guessed
Mm.
that 50 years later, things are, if not the same as they were, maybe even a little bit worse
Yeah.
than they were back then with respect to treating people equally, with respect to inclusivity, with respect to all of these things. ElfQuest's story from the very start had those elements. The elves, as Wendy said, they're humanoid, but they're not human. They're actually aliens from another world who landed on this world. There's already an indigenous human population. The humans look at the elves, they are otherworldly, they're different. So the first reaction is
Fear.
fear
Mm.
and persecution and hatred.
But I hasten to say, we didn't do this consciously. Nowadays, comics are very conscious of being politically correct and inclusive and representative and all of that wonderful stuff. Back then, we were just kind of flubbing along. We we wrote and drew what we cared about, but we didn't do it with any sort of political consciousness or
Preachy message.
desire to preach. We just wanted to tell a story, and we wanted to include a lot of different kinds of characters because it made the artwork very rich and really captivating to look at. We did it for ourselves. We did what
Yeah.
we loved to see, And it just so happens that nowadays it's more relevant than ever because people are regarding it as being kind of revolutionary in its inclusivity from so long ago.
We we would get asked at the very beginning, is this prehistoric Earth?
Mm.
And we didn't want to be tied down to earthly history, earthly conventions, anything like that. And we said, it's not Earth, it's an Earth as we would like it to be.
Mhm.
And that has pretty much been the foundation ever since,
Mm.
as we would like it to be.
Mm.
And most certainly it is. And one of the things that we would an archive like this will always beg the question is what's not included in this archive? Because I'm pretty sure you have kept some of the stuff from the archive that hasn't been donated yet, and maybe
Oh, yeah.
perhaps it will be donated much later in the case with an estate transfer down
That's
the
very
road.
Well,
well put.
and that's a very, very good and intelligent question. You're
Mm.
absolutely right. Um, some of the contracts and other legal papers that I have in filing cabinets stacked high, um, I have kept because I refer to them. And even though I have scanned them and I could put them into a PDF, there's something in me that wants to go to a filing cabinet and open the drawer and, riffle through the folders. That material will go. There is there is nothing I can think of right off the top of my head that would not go there. Um, because everything that we have collected and everything that we still have, yes, it has personal meaning, but that is going to last longer than we do.
Mm.
Hmm.
And after we're gone, what do I care?
We do have some favorite pieces that we have, hanging in the house. Artwork,
Mhm.
like real artwork.
Yeah. And so that is for later.
Yeah.
But all of those 1,500, 2,000 pages of her original artwork for all the series that she worked on. That stuff is already at Columbia.
Yes.
We have been very fortunate over the years that we've worked with good people, writers and artists, to do other ElfQuest material that we just didn't have the time to do.
Mm.
That artwork, of course, would go back to the
Went to
artist.
them. Yeah.
So they have done with it whatever they have decided to do.
Now, I also understand that the part of the collection is also it's not just to honor ElfQuest, but it's to also honor both you, Wendy, and you, Richard. Is some of the stuff are non-ElfQuest stuff. Some novelizations, some notes, some very early childhood artwork. Could you talk about that? I mean, this is literally your personal history that they're actually,
This is
preserving.
very true. There's a consistency to my work because from the very beginning, gosh, I've been drawing and painting since I was 2 years old, and
I can prove it.
I was, however, raised in a family that did not appreciate what I did. Um, some parents will very carefully keep their kids' drawings and writings and preserve them because they are treasured by the family. This was not the case in my family. My work was kind of put away in an unsafe place where it was exposed to mildew and moisture. And I'm telling you all this to say that it was Richard who saved all that early childhood work. He found it uh, in my parents' home, and he was pretty outraged at the condition it was in, and he took it all, and he did what he could to restore it. And now Columbia is doing even more to restore the work and make sure that it can last as long as anything else that's there.
Wendy has been a storyteller all her life, and all of her stories have a common theme, and that theme is a bunch of misfits looking for family, tribe,
Mhm.
community, safety. And ElfQuest is just the most recent, by far the most spectacular example of that. But all of her early drawings, we even have. Wendy was attracted to comics at an early age, as was I, but she was the artist. And in order to make her own comics, she used rolls of paper towel, and each paper towel was didn't separate them. So
So
I
you
have I
unroll
have these scrolls
it.
of her first comics. All of that goes to Colombia.
Mm,
Um,
Oh,
the prose novelizations that we worked on go to Colombia.
mm.
Uh, Ideas that never came to fruition. We have folders of lined paper with notations on them. Those go to Colombia. It is very, very inclusive.
Mhm.
yes, and Richard, I have to ask, is when you actually kept this collection before 2013, how did you actually do it? Was it just like in one room, or did you have like you know, a a basement, a storage facility? I mean, I can't imagine, decades of materials, how that's actually because you were the
It,
preservationist before.
He was.
yes,
Yes.
yes, I was. And um, in our house, my office was in the basement. I finished it out, and there were a whole lot of big flat files, artists' flat files that were just filled with envelopes, filled with her artwork. And then there were ranks upon ranks of filing cabinet filled with paperwork. Um, and it was very neat being able to go down there and just open up a drawer and relive the experience of watching Wendy do this or that issue. But at the same time, it was daunting because, as I said at the very beginning, if something ever happened to the house, no
Hmm.
amount of insurance
Hmm.
could bring back what had been destroyed.
I think there was one point where the basement did flood.
Oh,
Oh man.
yeah, yeah. 2009, I remember February,
Hmm.
the basement, the house was an older house, and the basement was cinder blocks, and they got porous. And went down there one morning, and there were puddles of water on the floor, and they were very slowly rising.
Hmm.
And talk about panic
Hmm.
and getting all that stuff upstairs, and then for weeks and weeks trying to fix that problem.
I don't,
I never
no,
wanted to have that happen again.
he never forgot that experience. So when Karen came to us in 2012 and asked us at San Diego Con, would you like to donate your collection? I think the first thing that hit us both was no more floods. There'll
Uh,
never be a flood that can affect Columbia's archives.
Yeah, no, it was just the answer to a very long prayer
Mm,
that I would not have to worry about damage occurring to her art.
yeah.
That early stuff, yeah, it had mildew on it, it had foxing on it, and now it's getting the treatment and the respect it deserves.
Yes.
And both of you have contributed wonderfully. And who knew hoarding actually benefited in this case? So
It was it was very, very organized hoarding.
Organized hoarding.
there
Yeah.
we go. Let's call it that. Wendy, Richard, I wish I had more time to discuss every single piece, but we don't. But I really appreciate all the stuff that you have done for the past 50 years and donating to Columbia University. I myself read ElfQuest back in the 80s when I was a little child myself. So
Wonderful.
it is wonderful. And you know what? For the rest of us, another 50 years to ElfQuest. So thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.